Hello and welcome back to the Mid-Am Podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Tyler Munns, and on the other side of the screen from me is my good friend Nathan Furumasu.
Hello.
And we have a returning guest, Drew Cooper.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Before we get started, quick shout out to the title sponsor of the show, Adele Golf. We've talked a ton about them and their irons and their wedges and their putters. So we don't need to dive into it too much more, but funny little anecdote. If you want to think you're going to hit a 6-iron 185 and then hit it 205 over a green, get some Adele SMS Pros because ball go far. So be sure to check out the fine folks at Adele Golf. That's EDELGOLF.com. Thanks again to Adele. If you want to hit it far, we got the guy to get you there, Drew. Thanks again for jumping on. Technically our third conversation, but this will be like the second episode because we had a little bit of a false start first time around. Yeah, thanks again for jumping on. Always a pleasure talking to you and picking your brain about the golf swing. So, how you been?
Good overall. Sick on and off with the kids starting school. It seems like someone's sick at all times, but
yeah,
getting through it.
Yep.
My business partner, he has 2 kids. They're both in like middle school, and first 3 weeks of school, his daughter had pink eye, COVID, and lice.
Oh yeah.
Okay, knock on wood, it's not that bad. We're just dealing with colds, but it seems to be cycling. Like one kid. So we have twins for people who don't know, who are in their first year of school ever. So it's like anything and everything that goes through that school, they get.
Yeah.
So inevitably,
it's probably at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
And then you guys get it.
Yeah, at some point.
Yeah.
And
then they get something else.
Yeah.
Yep. It's crazy.
Yep.
One of my buddies just not to turn this into the parenting hour, but one of my buddies, he just had his first kid, and he went through the hand, foot, mouth disease thing. And he got it, and he's like, God, dude, that was brutal.
Yeah.
I don't envy that. That's no fun.
Yeah. Kids are rough.
but they're a gift. Hey, so we didn't have
any. You ever notice? Hold on. Do you ever notice that only people without kids always are the ones that follow up with, "Oh, but they're a gift." The rest of us are just like,
I can only imagine. I can only imagine they're a gift. I got a dog.
Your dog is basically a child.
She's been about as expensive as a child. The last,
exactly.
She just like forgot who we were one night. Totally forgot who we were. Didn't recognize where she was or who we were. Took her in, went through battery test, dropped like almost 10 grand. And they're all just like, she might be having seizures again. You know, she had those as a puppy. So here's some meds, and totally fine. She's great. Thankfully we love it. We love that she's great, but it's just like,
wild.
Very fun.
Crazy. Anyway.
Well, hey, Drew, we don't have any specific sort of agenda. One question I wanted to pose to you, because Nathan and I have been talking about it a little bit. I've been, grinding on the swing a little bit. I have made some speed gains thanks to a lot of the things that you post on your Instagram page about sequencing and how to move the body to maximize speed. And so, I've probably gained roughly 8 miles an hour since January with the driver. And that's like the on course, like not me trying to swing out of my shoes. That's just like very comfortable fairway finder type swing. One of the things that we think has been somewhat detrimental in that process is that like where before I was not really turning my hips or really turning much at all. Now I'm turning way too quickly, way too much, and everything's getting very stuck. And it got us thinking, like, with the way that instruction is going, especially online, and you look at some of these pro swings like Nick Dunlap and Wacko Neiman, and you see these still images of them in these crazy positions. This idea of like teaching a rotational swing or having rotation be at the forefront of the mind, very intentional, the more we kind of dive into what what I need to be doing in my swing to get a little bit more consistent, take the flip out. It's like, man, is rotation like the biggest red herring in golf right now, or like instruction or swing theory, that like intentional rotation, rather, like making that something you're trying to do rather than a result of something, of other things happening in the swing. We pose the question, like, is rotation, is this like journey or this chase for rotation like potentially super detrimental to how you should actually be moving, and what's going to create more consistent contact, better launch angles, better spin numbers, and things like that. What are your like initial thoughts on that potential line of reasoning?
Yeah, so like I would say most people have gotten infatuated with like you just said, like the picture of, maybe for me it was Dustin Johnson, because I'm a little older. Neiman and Dunlap are younger, so like Duval, DJ had these looks of being like wide open at impact to a degree where like even at slow motion it doesn't even look like I can do it. So it's really crazy. The thing that I think that does is, like, in the attempt to rotate, I'll make a delineation between rotating or spinning, and most people spin out. So it's like, I want to look like that. So I have to turn really fast, really soon, so that I can look like that at impact. And maybe you can look like it, but you haven't, like, you have none of the dynamics, like you have none of the force producing qualities those people have, because you probably got up and you either spun before you shifted. So like you got your kinetic sequence out of whack. So if the kinetic sequence is horizontal force, torque, or rotational force, and then vertical in that order, people start going like, well, I'm going to hammer rotation. And they get up to the top of their backswing, they rotate, they slide late, and then they put their verticals in. So it's like you've spun out, you've got nothing anchored into the ground. So like if I make the analogy, have you guys heard of like the moment arm in creating speed?
Yes.
So like, okay, so like the common way people describe how the moment arm works is that like there's a line of force that you push into the ground, and that line leans one direction of your body's center of mass. And so the further those two things are apart, it's like having a longer wrench turning a lug nut on the wheel. That's kind of like the thing you hear all the time. The longer the wrench is and the further out on the wrench you hold, the easier it is to turn like a stuck bolt.
Yeah.
Right. The way I would like flip that, because that's correct. But like if the golf swing, if we flip that and say like, well, I'm producing the force at the lug nut, and like the golf swing's way out here at the end of the wrench, like I need to like hold, grip, anchor down, and like create tons of force proximally, so this thing out here swings really fast. So in a golf swing, the way I do that, or the reason I do that, is because people need to land and get like heavy into the ground on their lead leg first, so that when they start to turn or start to rotate, it's actually going to do something to the golf club. If I just get up here and spin, it's as if you're just like a wet noodle spinning, and you've got nothing going into the club.
Cool.
So like I think people, I don't think rotation's a bad thing. I don't think achieving an open look at impact is bad. I just think people get obsessed with it and then chase the wrong thing. They're not chasing like the right thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I saw a video recently of I think it was a Be Better Golf. Brennan was doing, he had like a video of a trebuchet, and everybody looks at like, oh, look at that, the most distal angle on the trebuchet. Look how it holds its leg and then like really flings and stuff. But what fascinated me is more in line with what you were saying, is like, if you look at the other end, the fat weight on the trebuchet that like propels all the entire motion, it doesn't move that fast or that much.
Right.
And so it's like, that's your, how'd you say, your
force
center,
generator.
your force generator. That's like, that's creating the motion and like you're tighter in, you're closer to the center that you're moving, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, I just like freaking rip that thing
Right.
wide, as open and as fast as I can.
Right.
Well,
You're
you see it in
moving
like
that
figure
differently, and
skating.
then yeah,
It's like figure skating. It's like when they want to turn. I mean, everything gets
Tight.
tucked, and then
Yeah.
that
yeah,
creates this insane rotation.
yeah,
Or like when if you have like a wobbly stick and you want to move that as quickly as possible, like you're not really.
yeah,
It's not a big motion. It's a pretty small motion. It's very tied in, and so I like that analogy of like, instead of thinking about the the force you're putting it on the outside, you are the lug nut, and you're
Right.
almost like you're trying to turn so that you're that smallest gear,
Yeah.
so that the big gear, the very end, that's the one that's turning a lot quicker. And
Right.
yeah, I think like one of the things that, again, that you've done such a good job of illustrating in the things that you post is this idea of sequencing being like so paramount. And I think one of the reasons that it's not maybe taught is or it's not in like the zeitgeist of popular teaching on the internet, is because it's not really like clippable. It's not really sexy. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not the weird shallowing Genghis motion. And we rip on Genghis a lot, not out of like spite or anything, but it's just like some of the things that, these weird positions that, he wants you to get in, where he's got 16 interns moving every joint in your body. It's like, that man, that's so shareable on the internet. That is so shareable on the internet. But like, what isn't shareable, or what isn't like, sexy, is like, oh, you got to land into that lead side, man. And this is kind of what it looks like. And when you look at it, you're like, oh, it doesn't look particularly tough. That doesn't, it's
Right.
just, it's really just like, hey, am I timing this thing right? And so in your opinion, like, when folks are like working on this stuff at home, like how much can you, uh, like grind on the sequencing stuff without really even having to think about hitting a golf ball? Because like we're getting into the winter season, right? And so for a lot of the country up here, it's not horrible. Like we can still go out and play. I could still go out and practice, but it's going to be rainy and cold, and it's not that fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in the Midwest, where it's everything's shutting down. Um, you know, uh, how, what can folks listening at home who's like, hey, I want to grind on the swing, but maybe I don't want to hit a bunch of balls because I want to like, I'm working on injury prevention, and the movements that I am going to make, I'd rather that be in the gym or something, rather than like beating 3,000 balls and maybe getting hurt. So like, but I still want to work on the move. How much, I guess, like, is it realistic to think that, hey, if I just did some like step drills, dry swing step drills, or like use the Dr. Kwan rope drill, or things like that, can you make like significant gains from just like a sequencing standpoint, which then, translates to like better impact positions and things like that, without really even having to see the ball fly or feel like the contact of the ball?
Yeah, I think some people will have like better success with that than others. So like if you have like real flaws in your golf swing, like structural, the way it looks, and you just do some wild stuff, like you lose your shoulder plane, you go real flat, you pronate the lead arm, roll the club inside, and it's wide
Yeah.
open. Like if you have like big things, you're going to struggle to get the let's call it the dry swings or the body work to transfer to the golf. So like if you have like a reasonably good swing, like I would take Tyler, like there's nothing you do that like I would look at. If I walked past you on a driving range, I would think good golf swing. I wouldn't think like, oh God, dude's gonna slice every ball he hits. Like,
Right.
the difference. Like everything you do, your structure is good. You would benefit more than the person who needs like actual
Kind of like
structure work.
overhauls type
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, like just learning how the wrists work in a golf swing, or
Mhm.
what the arms do, or how do you keep your inclination through your thorax, like that type of stuff. would come first. And then like the step drills, the body work, like the sequencing work gets really fun because you're in a good enough position to make use of it all.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's my thoughts. Like those are the people that make the big improvements. Like I had a guy the other day out at Drivebox he was hitting 7 irons and like really nice swing, but just really bad pressure shifting and winding up. Like 3 swings, he jumped 12 miles an hour with a 7 iron. And it's like,
Jeez.
that's not me. That's not like some magic thing I did. He had a good golf swing. He just needed to learn how to like move, basically. And so like those are the things that you could go post that and be like, look what we did. But it's like, I mean, he came in with a good swing, a good player. And we just sort of like said, well, why don't we just get like a little more dynamic? Like, how about we just allow you to move around a bit and be an athlete? And it was just like, boom, here it is.
Well, I think
something.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, is that something that you find with? So a really common occurrence, I think, is like people who hit like normal gapping up through like 5 iron or something, and then all of a sudden like their speed just either doesn't continue to increase proportionally.
Yeah.
And so like case in point, we just got the Rapsodo, the MLM 2 Pro little launch monitor, and I was using it. And I was hitting 7 irons, and my 7 iron clubhead speed is like on par with like PGA Tour averages. Like I'm swinging at like 91.
Right.
But my driver clubhead speed isn't like proportionally continuing up. Is that like a sequencing thing that you would point at, or do you think that tends to be more like probably then you're exposing more mechanical flaws?
It could be either one. Like I'd be lying if I said it was one or the other. If the shots are good with irons and then like bad, like, you know, like maybe it's like a 1-way miss with an iron and a 2-way miss with a driver and a contact miss with a driver, then we'd start going like, okay, maybe there's fundamental like technical things wrong.
Yeah.
Because like it went from like good ball striking to not only not fast, but bad ball striking. We'd start going like, okay, like let's actually look at the swing. If it's all kind of the same, like the misses are the same, the contact's the same, it just kind of doesn't keep getting faster, I would go sequence and or like body, range of motion, strength, power, the ability to handle a longer club at velocity. Like we'd start looking at like, how's your body moving? Is like, do you swing the club longer with a driver, or is it like a 3/4 swing? Like what's going on? Like, are you losing segments? So like if you swing a nice like short 7 iron, like a 3/4 looking, but then the driver's long, but you've gotten it through like caving the lead arm, you know, maybe extending the spine poorly. Like there's all sorts of things that can happen.
Sure.
So it's just a matter of trying to figure out which one you are.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So much. That kind of ties into sort of what we started speaking about, but then also something you mentioned last time you were on, that like we asked you like what's the biggest misconception about speed, and you said like more effort.
Yeah.
Like try mo not better.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that. Tyler and I played a couple days ago together, and we were talking about that on the course of just like, okay, if I try like put it into like workout terms, like RPE 80, right? So like perceived effort, essentially, on a 8 iron or whatever, and then I do the same with like a longer club. You know, how does that like? I feel like people change their amount of effort as the club gets longer, or at least maybe it's perceived effort because the club is longer and the weight is further out and it's faster and all this stuff. So like I find that interesting and how that influences like sequencing and distance and things like that. So yeah, I was kind of hoping you'd expand on that.
Like the effort versus ease. Like I would tell guys I coach, pretend you're hitting a driver like you're trying to towel whip your buddy. If you really want to crack somebody, you don't like go really hard throwing your arm. Like you just time the crack. Like you're like that the effort level doesn't really change. It's really like the timing of when you're going to snap the towel back. It's not like that's a golf club. Like the golf club is not like I'm going to throw my arm way faster because that's going to help me do something. It's not really.
Yeah. Well, that's funny too, because then like carrying that analogy through, like a shorter towel, you would have to feel like you move faster
Yeah.
to whip it, versus a longer towel, i.e. a driver, it's going to feel so much slower and like almost lazier that you're just letting it develop. Like it's
And this is
almost
where
like a
like,
decrease in effort.
right. And this is where I would like, you get into the internet, like what's shareable and what's not. Like the whole leave the hands up debate versus like the arms come down
Sure.
is like the vast majority of people who benefit from the feeling of leaving the arms up are really just getting the body to work sooner. Like they aren't actually leaving the hands up. They're just not getting up and yanking them down before anything else has started. So like,
Right.
do you actually leave them up? No, like they're going to be active. They're going to swing. But when they like experience the tension or the effort, has to come what feels like later to this person, because they've gone up and just yanked their arms down, and then it's like the body's trying to do something, and you've lost all of that like stretch or that tension across like the lats and the shoulders, the pelvis, because you just spent it. You've just like pulled the slack out of everything.
Gotcha. But they're not spinning.
Those people, no.
Yeah. Hopefully not. If they leave the arms up and spin, that's minus 15.
Yeah, it's trouble. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I think like that's shareable though. Like, oh yeah, just leave them up and rotate, and you never have to do anything. Is like, it's going to work for some people. It's usually going to work for like good people who hit like big hooks, who kind of like dump everything under and throw everything out. If you give that, leave the hands up to a slicer, you've usually got a problem.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like the good and bad of the internet is that like, you have 90 seconds, and in some cases really not even that, because it's man, sometimes Instagram wants to, push 15 seconds. Like right now, I can tell you, like from an algorithm standpoint, like 15-second videos are doing pretty well. And it's like, man, if you're thinking about trying to educate someone in 15 seconds, how do you distill information down like responsibly? Because to your point, the idea of leaving the hands up, the mechanism, or like the driving mechanism there is not leaving the hands up. It's giving yourself more time to sequence correctly. And
it's changing.
That should be explained so that people understand what's happening, because at a certain point they're going to overdo it and they're not going to understand why it's not working anymore. And, like everyone, I myself, like I try to self-diagnose and self-correct, a bunch. And it's thankfully I have spent a ton of time like on trying to understand the swing and learn the swing and learn like what actually, try to like, it's, equate it to like reading comprehension, right? It's like reading between the lines. It's like, okay, they're saying this, but like what, I'm going to take it into the context of like the rest of the body, because the golf swing is not just the hands. It's not just the arms. It's not just the chest, it's the whole thing. If you're not spending the time, and I guess this is to anyone listening who's like casual, not calling you a casual, but I'm like, if you're not like super nerdy about the golf swing, which is probably good for you, man, like that's probably a good thing. Like be wary of the things that you see of this like kind of quick fix. And if it works for a while, like maybe try to find a coach, explain what's happening, explain why this works, and maybe they can figure out, or maybe they can help you parse out like what is actually happening, because it's more than likely that the feel that you have is more than likely not what's actually fixing the issue. It's just a feel that allows you to do something else correctly. And going back to the drive box lesson that you were talking about, how, the guy had a pretty decent swing, and then you just kind of helped him figure out the pressure feels and the timing of it all. I bet you if you took those two videos side by side, like to someone who's not, keyed in on what that's supposed to look like, they probably look really, really similar. And it's probably really, really hard for someone to be like, whoa, what a major change. Because it's the swing, the move's the same. I mean, shoot, man, I was looking at videos of me in 2015 when I like weighed almost twice as much as I do now. I'm like, dude, that swing looks eerily similar to my swing right now. And I was blown away. I thought for sure that like it would look totally different. I'm like, oh man, no, it's kind of the same. It's just like it's just the subtlety of the movement is where, where all of like the good stuff lies. And that's so hard to figure out on your own. That's why one of the things that we harp is, you got to find someone to work with. And so I did a lesson with you, like a Zoom lesson recently, and was super, super helpful in helping me move along and keep moving towards, a better action. And it seems like you've been kind of ramping up the lesson stuff. So I'd love to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about, what you're doing with, through next year. I know it's somewhat tied in with the drive box on some of the local stuff. So, if you wanted to talk about some of the stuff you're doing, like from a lesson standpoint, just because it's one of the things we harp, it's like, you can't do it on your own. If you really want to get better, you need someone that can see things that you can't see, and like translate these little internet clips so that you understand why it's working and why maybe if you overdo it won't work.
Or why that internet clip is good information, but not good information for you. Like, I think that's a big one for a lot of people, is that like a lot of people put out good information. It's all like relatively like very good, but it's not good for everyone. So like to your point about understanding the swing, like you can look at something and go, that's good. I'm on like the total other end of that spectrum. So like for me, like just as an example, if I watched Mike Bender, my swing would get worse because everything he teaches are my faults. I hit big hooks, and he's basically a guy that helps slicers not slice it. So it's like, if I didn't know that and I watched him and I'm like, oh man, he's coached so-and-so and, major champions. And it's like, okay, good information. But for me, it would be terrible. Like I would hit bigger and bigger hooks. So understanding where you lie. And then to your point, just real quick, like the amount of golfers who think their swing changes dramatically from day to day because, like I hit the ball left on Monday and then I hit like thin right on Friday. It's like, it's the same swing. Like if you think your swing's changing that much, like you've got different swings, like I have a bridge to sell you, because like it's the same swing. You can work as hard as you want. You're typically going to go back to what you've always done for whatever reason, whether it's just motor learning and it's where you're comfortable, whether it's physical and you've got limitations, or it's just like this is how I know how to do things. But people don't change their swing that much. Like it's very interesting to hear people say like, well, I'm working on this thing because I used to swing it like this and now I swing it like that. And you're like, it's like a shade of the old swing, but it's the same thing. But yeah, next year is fun because we do the physical training and online golf coaching together. So my business partner is Landon Evans. Landon is, for people who don't know my background, I had a gym and owned a gym for a decade. And then I got into sports science, where I worked for a force plate motion capture, hamstring testing, groin testing. It's like a sports science, basically like a lab in a car company. And so we went around to, basically every major league sports team you could imagine. I think I've visited and worked with, the San Francisco Giants, the 49ers, the Oakland Raiders, the Dodgers, the Padres, Arizona Cardinals, Dallas Cowboys, New Orleans Saints, Green Bay Packers. Like you just start, like you go through all of these teams. And out of all the strength and conditioning people I've met at Olympic training centers, I've been to the Navy SEALs in Coronado, Quantico over on the East Coast.
Wow.
Landon's like the guy. Through all that, I would take information and go back to him and be like, what do you think? Like, does this make sense? So like he would be like my Dana Dahlquist is my golf coach. Yeah. I take information to him and then I would do the same thing with Landon. So I'm lucky to have him be a part of this. And the people who work with us are lucky because the guy will do blood panels. He'll look at diet. He's a registered dietitian. He's a part of a artificial intelligence and computer vision company where he does work for this company that works in the military. He's just a cool guy, very interesting person, very intelligent. He does the diet and training, and then people send golf swings to me. Landon and I talk. Like Landon would be like, "Hey, Patrick is dealing with like a right arm issue. He's struggling with internal rotation, and it seems to bug him through like adduction." And it's like, okay, so like when I look at his swing, I have at least some semblance of what's going on physically if Patrick has shared that. And we can go from there. So like we have a good working relationship that way. And then I do online lessons just through like, you just want a one-off, normal golf stuff. It's not what I like to do because I like, so the way we do it next gear would be like, kind of like what I did with you. It's like, there's stuff I see, but like, we're going to talk about like one thing and just do the one thing, because again, we can use you because you put your stuff out there. Like I saw that you lowered in the backswing and you raised in the downswing. It's like, I don't care if you grip it strong. I don't care if you grip it weak. I don't care if the club's open or shut. If you do that, you're not going to compress anything. Like it's just it's not going to happen. So like fundamental rock first. And that's the lesson. Like I need to see that you're maintaining levels on the way back and you're lower at impact. Period. I don't care if you're open. I don't care if you're closed. Like that's got to change. The hard part about online work is people want it all today. So it's like, just do that. Just like, it's not going to be easy to change. It's simple, but it's not easy to change. So like, that's the one-off lesson stuff. And then I do the in-person stuff at Drivebox, and I've done it traveling around a bit. So like I do it in San Diego, once a month. I'll go down for a day and work. But yeah, so just more lessons. Typically I try and use Swing Catalyst. So typically I've got 3D force plates with me. People would ask, like, is that necessary? It's probably not necessary, but it's really, really helpful. Like it's super helpful. It's super helpful for me. And then it's also for the person learning, because it's like 3D capture or TrackMan. It's like, you think you're coming over the top and your path is 4 right. It's like, it's not over the top. Like this is the number. Don't take my word for it. Like, let's look at information. So with a Swing Cat, it's like pressure is in the trail foot at this point. Most tour pros are there like 10 frames earlier. So like, let's get pressure moving sooner. Not because like I think, but because like the whole of Swing Catalyst data pool from tour data would say they all pretty much do this. Like if all of them do it, it's probably a good idea for you to move in that direction. Again, I'm not saying you need to be Kyle Berkshire and like dance all over the place and shift your pressure like a madman, but we do need to get right sooner. Here's the data to back up what I'm saying. If it's live mode, we can start playing with that heat map and just like sending pressure right sooner. Like, how do I do that? Let's talk about pushing from the left leg to the right. Let's talk about, swaying the upper body, like tilting. There's just different ways to accomplish things. And when you've got like objective data coming back at you, it's usually really nice for everyone, because it's like, oh man, that felt like I was just sliding all over the place. And you're like, well, actually you just shifted nicely and it just felt crazy because you've been a stack and tilt person forever. So like, this is fantastic. Yeah, you hit the ball bad, but like, what do you think's going to happen? I just asked you to sign your name left-handed and you're right-handed. It's like, it's bad. You got to learn. That's the goal.
Is there like a level of player where you think that, because you're like, is force plates necessary? Maybe not. Is there like a level of player? Obviously, like really good players can benefit from getting into that type. I'm going to call it minutia. It's really important, but if you're talking like getting that kind of data driven, a lot of people would see that as like, whoa, that's really getting into the weeds. Is there like a cutoff for you where you see someone and you're just like, yeah, man, like your weight transfer is really not anything I want to think about right now. Like we got to do X, Y, Z, before we even think about any of this stuff, where you would just be like, yeah, the force plates would just be kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, it's kind of like yes and no. So like they're always helpful. again, like TrackMan, like when I see Dana and I will talk about like swing direction, low point, vertical swing plane. But like with my dad, it's like, here's path and loft. It's like the technology is helpful, but like it's on the coach to describe it in a way that's useful. So I may talk, try to think of a person. I may talk, just use me. Like I may talk to myself about like the timings and the relationships between like the horizontal break and the vertical peak, or like when the AP, like the horizontal or the rotational torque stuff kicks in. With a guy, like I had a guy in San Diego who was getting this like this really like lawnmower-y trail arm, and the club was just ratcheted up across his head. And it was like, okay, so like here's some force plate stuff, but by and large, we're going to get this thing away from you so that the arm's a little bit better and the club's a little bit better. By far and away, this is where we're living. Change this, but like there's some stuff here that we can work on, but it's not going to take precedence. It's like information for me. And if they're interested, it's cool. But like, yeah, there's points. It kind of goes back to that, like, who's going to benefit from dry swings? It's like same person. Like if their structure is just really bad, we're going to start there. And the force plates are going to be, you know, nice. We may talk about them if they're interested, but really we're just going to fix the arms and the wrists and whatever.
Hey everyone, just wanted to jump on to thank a new sponsor of the show, Rapsodo Golf. We both recently got the new MLM2 Pro mobile launch monitor and have been using it a ton on and off the course. And we are incredibly impressed with not only the accuracy, but the versatility of the unit. Featuring a dual optical camera vision and radar processing, you can hone in on 13 different metrics, including spin rate and spin axis. And the 1-year premium membership that's included with the purchase of the MLM2 Pro provides an all-new target range play mode with 72 unique target distances and 4 fairway targets, as well as simulation on over 30,000 golf courses and 2 virtual ranges. It is the perfect gift for yourself or the dedicated grinder in your life this holiday season. So be sure to check out all of the products Rapsodo has to offer by clicking the link in the show notes or in the bio of our Instagram page at Midam Podcast. Thanks again to the team at Rapsodo for being a fantastic partner of the show. One of the things that we've seen in just like from a technology standpoint, obviously, is, 5 years ago, having any sort of launch monitor at home that was worth anything was like prohibitively expensive. Now, you shout out Rapsodo, you can get a pretty solid unit for like well under $1,000. That's giving you some great data. I think within the last like year, I've started to see something similar with force plates, where prohibitively expensive 2 years ago. They were on my radar 2 years ago, but I'm like, dude, I'm not paying, $6,000 for force plates.
That's cheap.
Right.
Yeah, so like to give you an idea, the Big Daddy Swing Catalyst dual force, so triaxial force plates. So you got load cells under each triaxial load cells. So there's what? 8. I think there's 8 load cells. A load cell in and of itself is like $1,000. Like,
jeez,
just to buy the load cell. So like people don't realize just to get plates made is expensive, because if you use good stuff, it's expensive. Just to buy supplies. But so the big guy from Swing Catalyst, with however many pressure sensors there's like 1,200 pressure sensors in these mats. And then you got the load cells. It's like $45,000 to get a computer, force plates, pressure, cameras, license, software. And like this year, they're coming out with one that is basically half the price. If you don't want the pressure, it's less. It's like what would it be, a fourth of the price? Mm-hmm. So you're now into like software, computers, plates for like 10 grand, 12 grand. Yeah. So it's like a dramatic cut. We're still not there. There's plates that are getting cheaper, but these ones, like I would say, like are research grade. Like they're everything you could want out of a force plate that's sampled 1,000 hertz and directly connected to the plate. Yeah. So, but you're right. Like things are moving and they'll continue to move.
let's assume that it moves on a similar trajectory that we've seen launch monitors, right? So it would, you could expect that let's say within the next 3 years, you could potentially get some like rudimentary force plates that give you some basic at-home data for like the non-coach, for let's say $1,000.
Right.
Do you think that would be benefit? Like, is that something where if someone buys that, it's like they're just throwing their money away because it's like, you might not get maybe you need that like full suite of data, because like on the launch monitors, yeah, you can get club data. Club data is great, swing path, dynamic loft, all that stuff. Awesome. I've used units that have ball and club data, and then I'm using a unit that just has ball data, and I'm kind of okay with just the ball data.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not the case with force plates. Maybe you do need that full suite to really like actually get any value out of it. I guess maybe that's my first question. Like, do you need that full suite to get any value out of it? And then let's say if the answer is like, no, maybe not necessarily. It's like, does the even like an avid golfer, like myself and Nathan, like, is that just a waste of money? Is that just like you're doing too much WebMD at that point?
I would say if you had, so like, let's be realistic and say the price of like a good set of Traxial force plates would be $5,000.
Okay.
That'd be cheap. Like that'd be very cheap.
Yeah.
At that point, I would rent time at a bay that has them and get a coach.
And
then like just kind of go for a check-in once a year, once every 6 months on the plates, but then see a coach. You're going to get way more out of that.
Yeah.
And to answer your question more specifically, where you're going is like the person that wants to spend $1,000 for some casual data probably could spend $100 and get a downshift board and get like a lot of that feedback and information really quickly.
Yeah.
And then the person that actually wants and needs the force plate data probably wants all of it, and they want it to be robust and big enough to hit balls on. So you're kind of like in this middle ground. Like if you're going to go retracted enough where, again, like with a launch monitor, if you just gave me a launch monitor that gave me really quality carry numbers, I could go in my net and improve my golf game. Like,
yeah.
So it's like the force plate, I would say, isn't like that. Like you need either all of it, or you just want to do something that mimics it to a degree. Yeah, okay. Like go get tested. Go see a coach that has them.
I think
I fully expect to see someone put out some like piece of shit like $1,000 force plates. That's like those little Dance Dance Revolution pads that would like hook up to your Wii. It's like the nylon. Like I'm assuming someone's going to put that out at some point.
Yeah,
I would. And then there'll be like a $300 version on Temu.
Yeah,
that was a nice, like, reasonable and wizened answer from Drew, but I'll just flat out say no. That's a waste of your money.
Yeah,
because it's, we've all seen these videos, and I'll just take an example from. Have you ever seen the videos of like, here is a professional photographer with a disposable film camera versus someone who doesn't know how to take photos with a professional camera?
Like $100,000.
Let's compare the results.
Yeah,
it's like it like anything, it's a tool. And if you don't use the tool all the time, you're worthless with that information or with that tool. Like I know a lot of people, TPI is a wonderful thing if we're back in the golf space. And I think it can be really beneficial and helpful. But I also know a lot of people that have gone and gotten TPI certifications and they never put it in practice. They never use it. They don't screen people. And if you were to go get a TPI screening from them, they're going to just tell you, here's the results.
Let's work out.
Yeah. But those results are so much less meaningful, less helpful, less impactful than if you were to go and get it from Greg Rose, right? That guy, he could put you through half the screen and be like, I know, let's do this, right? Like, so like anything, it's a tool, and if someone's not using that tool all the time, then I don't know. Like even I've spent a lot of time with launch monitors over the course of my life, whether it's TrackMan or whatever. And so now having the Rapsodo, it's like, okay, I can look at this and I know what spin axis is. I know, like, and I can interpret this. I don't need all these other data points because I can read this. But there's a lot of people out there who have no idea, and they're just, they'll get something out of it. Like Drew said, if you get accurate carry numbers, cool. That's great.
It's fun. Yeah.
Get your averages and like that'll help you. But don't spend 20 grand on, a track man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're coming up on our time, but I wanted to ask one more question of you as it relates to kind of speed training and then how that impacts like your overall swing. I've heard the term or like the adage, like you've got to earn speed training. So like to your point, it's like you've got to have a move that's mechanically within reason, within comfortable ranges before really like speed training should even be considered. I would say I'm probably in a good spot to kind of start doing some speed training this off season. I recently listened to an episode of No Laying Up with Sasho from the Stack System. One of the things that he talked about, and we've heard also the guys at Mach 3 Speed, talk about something similar, that like speed training can also be beneficial to like some of your mechanics, right? Because a lot of it is centered around like your sequencing, and if your body is, if your pressure shifts are happening at the right time, typically things are going to move in a way that's a little bit maybe more efficient. And so, I mean, they go so far as to say they see mechanical improvements via speed training as like a byproduct of speed training. Interested to know what your thoughts are on that like line of thinking. It's like, hey, could I potentially expect, or not even like, I would say some people might go into thinking like, if I want to get a better golf swing, I should go speed training because like it's going to put me in better positions, and I'll start compressing the ball more with my irons. I'll start launching the ball a little higher with lower spin with my driver. Like, is that reasonable, or is that maybe just a little bit too much of a sales tactic?
Again, I've got boring answers for everything. That's why
that's fine.
My stuff doesn't do well. But it's, I would say it depends on the like we go right back to that guy who gained so much speed by just learning like pressure shift and wind up. Like some people, the speed training input will just click with them and things will change for the better. I actually really like Craig Parker. His take is that like with coaching, speed training can be like really impactful, like really good. But some people left to their own devices can just butcher speed training. And typically those are the people who are like, I didn't get any faster doing this. I kind of hurt my back. Like it's probably because you did it really poorly, and your whole like like your whole premise or idea of how you should generate speed is just not good. And it shows up with a bad speed swing, and that shows up with bad sort of adaptations for your technique. However, I do think like with just some semblance of like understanding of the swing, like some semblance of decency in your swing, speed training can be very, very good. But I do think like if you give a 25 handicap with a big slice pattern, a speed stick, and you'd say nothing other than just go for it, I don't think that in and of itself is going to be beneficial. I would say more often than not, that's not beneficial. Gotcha. It can be still, it still could work. But yeah,
you would expect,
I would expect that
if we're going to fall back to the mean, it's probably going to do more harm than good.
Yeah. Cause again, I'm going off the assumption that the way they think they need to generate speed is just not good. So like their thought process is like, I'm going to spin my shoulders and swing my arms. And it's like that upper body driven, like power feeling sort of guy swing. The old man stiff swing where it's like this big lungy over the top. Like you give that guy a speed stick and he's probably just going to do that more. A little bit of
potentially
coaching.
Hurt himself.
Yeah. A little bit of coaching, like, hey, let's just hold the upper body closed and swing it. And it's like, that may be all you need to do to help the guys, not only speed, but mechanics. But yeah, I think Craig said that really well. Like just like a few cues on your speed work, like a few coaching cues, and then speed work can be like very beneficial technically.
So it all goes back to find a coach, find someone to help you make sure you're on the right path before you go down any particular road thinking, you know how to solve your own problems.
Yeah. Again, it's like if you're like, I'm not a mechanic, but like I could probably change my oil, change a tire. And it's like I might get lucky and do something more complicated. Like if I watch a YouTube video and not like screw something up. But again, on the average, I'm going to screw up my car if I try and work on it. Like,
right.
So it's like this, some things may work. And then you may be like hooked and be like, oh, this is great. I'm going to tell everybody this is great. But on average, you want to get professionals to help you with things you don't understand. Again, same thing with like anything, a lawyer, a doctor. Like I may go on WebMD and diagnose myself with a rare disease and hit the nail on the head. But like 9 times out of 10, I'm not. Like I'm going to mess it up.
You have cancer.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. Yeah. It's like, can you? Sure. But you don't, we live in a world where you don't have to, because you can schedule Zoom lessons with guys like Drew.
Yeah.
Like the world is your oyster, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Yeah, it was somewhat difficult. I mean, you had to find someone that was local essentially, and that can be tough because maybe you don't have access to, a solid pro, but, I can tell you, and I know Nathan can tell you from experience, that like online lessons are just as beneficial as in-person lessons.
Yeah.
So we're both big advocates for that. So,
speaking of in-person lessons though, Drew is not just a speed guy now. Like he's a short game savant.
Oh yeah. You saw the James Ridyard?
Oh yeah.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
Changed my life.
What was that like?
That was actually like some of the most fun I've had on a golf course. Like more people should know who James is. I think James is like the quintessential it depends guy, because like he's never going to give you something like hyper sellable. Like he's just very honest. He's very data driven. He knows like the short game inside and out. So it's like it was really cool. Like I've taken his wedge matrix course. I've watched his stuff online. And it was really cool to see a guy who maybe comes across as like hyper technical and analytical. In person, it was like the drills and the feels he gave me were so simple and so
I mean, was it as quick as the YouTube video made it? Like it was like one cue. He was basically just said like, "Well, do your full swing but smaller."
Yeah. And then he had to do this like Jim Furyk deal.
Yeah.
You see the Jim Furyk, like the right elbow gets stuck on the right hip and you're not allowed to separate them basically.
Yeah.
That like when he did that, like the whole, like the everything from the way the club entered the ground to the way the ball came out all got better like immediately. Then we played around a bit. Like we did like a Furyk drill where we tried to hit low balls with like a high right shoulder. That worked well. I don't know if you saw the Alex Noren thing where he had me lay the face way open. And then if you can picture Alex Noren's like practice swing, that ridiculous, like over
the top thing.
So he had me open the face wide open and then pretend like I'm Alex Noren hitting the ball as low as I possibly could and like hit some of like the filthiest low spinners. He hit one that was unbelievable. I mean, he hit some shots that day that were just stupid looking. And then we went in the bunker. The bunker wasn't shown, but his bunker stuff was super good for me. Again, like part of you're always a product of your environment. So like I play oftentimes in courses with no sand, super hard dirt. So I was getting like super steep and like throwing the club into the ground to try and get it under. The bunker we happened to be in was like beach sand. It was like powder.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And it was just terrible. So he just like, to give people insight, it was just like the steeper you want the club path to be, the firmer the sand, the more cut, the more left of target it should be. The more neutral, the more at the target, and the puffier, cloudier sort of sand, the more draw divot, like the more draw the trajectory of the sand should go. like that in and of itself just changed everything. And again, I was like, this is so dumb. Like it's
just
like all of these thoughts get put down into like divot go left, divot go straight, divot go right. And it was like, that's it. He's like, yeah. I was like, okay.
You're just
cool.
changing angle of attack, basically.
Yeah, path, angle of attack. And like his big thing in the sand, again, I'm not talking for him, is depth.
Yeah. Oh,
so, yeah. So like it's less about like any one path measure, angle of attack. It's just like how deep is the club going to go or not going to go, which was cool. It was a nice, it was refreshing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Drew. We really appreciate you jumping on with us again. Always an incredible conversation. We'll be sure to plug your socials. Your YouTube stuff's great as well. It's always fun watching you go and try to pick courses apart. And then, we'll check out that short game, the short game stuff that you recently posted is really, really fun. If you guys want to find us, we're on Instagram at Mid-Am Podcast. You can find me at Fade and Fairway, Nathan at Nathan.Firmasu, and at Thistle Leather Goods. Again, thank you, Drew. We really appreciate you, and we'll I'm sure we will talk soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.